Right then, starting streaming. Hopefully everything is working. Yeah, starting streaming. Reno, can you hear me? Excellent. Excellent. So we got that streaming. We got that working. We're working on that.
We are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Oh. Hello. The camera decided. No, will you? Look. No, these are mine. Mine, not yours. You've already eaten all of the pork pies you've eaten. You're not allowed the rest of my food. No. You can look as cute as you like. Not happening. Sorry. I'm defending something from a poodle. Hello, everyone. So, theoretically, questions are open. And I am receiving them as well. So, theoretically. There's a debate in the chat going on for a 60-second versus a 90-second cooldown. We are joined by Dr. Dan, who's not got his video camera on today.
Oh, now he does.
He has his video camera on, but we can't hear him.
Alright, at local time zone plus 38 minutes. So in 5 minutes from now, I'm going to close the queue. So this way we're not here for 84 hours. Because, as some of you might have heard, my social battery is just about flat after this week.
Yes, Runon has lost their... functionally seems to have lost their job. We won't go into the full details of it, but we'll just say we're mildly annoyed on their behalf. And the joke about Runon emigrating to the UK is something that now quite a lot of us are pushing for.
Including me. But it's all over but the paperwork. So we're waiting. It's going to be a mess. We'll see what happens.
I should probably not admit this publicly on air, but after my mum heard the news, she went away to her office and was on the phone for the next 3 hours. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's what happened. I'm not sure who got that phone call, but it did not sound like a fun one from the side I was on.
Out? I'm concerned now. I don't know for who.
Questions are currently open, so I'll make sure that little lovely question closed. Questions open, yeah. Put that there. So we're taking questions open a moment. And when they're closed, I'll be told, and I'll I'll change it to close one. Powder Monkey seems to be happy now. It was having feelings and reacting in a way only it can. I should probably put these signs down below. No, you are not getting my cheese and ham. You are not. It's mine. It's mine. Nicest way. You've had portions of all the food today. You're the reason I'm looking at buying a rice cooker, literally because you keep not liking the rice that's cooked for you. Sorry.
That should fix the audio, chat. Sorry about that.
Okay. Dan, how's your audio?
His gnomes appear to have gone on strike.
He needs a PT immediately. Okay. Hello, Twitch, by the way. Hello, everyone who's watching.
Good evening, Nightwolf. And DeBrock, Fleet is running behind today.
Yeah, Fleet is running behind. Yes, no, that's right. He is not starving. If anyone thinks my dog is starving, he's one of the best fed dogs I know.
Ooh, I like that question from Black Horse. I'll be excited to get to that.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of good questions coming in. I liked today. I liked the.
Black Horse. We got we got you, fam.
Creamy.
At least I think we got you.
I've got
Yeah,
the questions we have on
working.
we have on YouTube for the
Yes,
we have for the patrons.
Bruno, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I need to vote. So, alrighty. I guess Dan, have you gotten your audio unconnected yet?
Well, I can see him talking. Right. Fleet is Fleet or Boop, as I call him. Boop, because almost every time we're doing a live together on Armchair Admirals, etc., I have to boop him to go boop, boop, boop. And he goes, but I'm not supposed to be on here. I'm like, yes, you are. You're expected. What do you mean I'm expected? I mean, they've got 6 slots on the screen and there's an empty one waiting for you. And he turns up and goes, ah! He constantly does himself a disservice. He constantly claims he doesn't think he's, worthwhile being invited on these things. And there's me and Drac quite happy to have him. Excuse me, my big fluffy friend. What's up?
All right, Knight and Jonathan, I'll scoop yours in once we get to that point. All right, so from Ramal, question 1. What if the Royal Navy went with 1 instead of 2 QE carriers, but with Catabar slightly better, larger than CD or Charles de Gaulle with 68 aircraft capacity? Conventional power, do you think the RN is better off? No.
Infinitely worse off. Infinitely worse off. There is no value in having really a single carrier. The French do it because, frankly, for them it's a status of having a carrier and they do it nuclear powered. But honestly, having one carrier, just going, oh good, we've got a Catabar carrier, but we've only got 1 carrier, so that means there's going to regularly be times we don't have available. You will be kicked out. You will be. Poodle, behave.
But he's a good doggy.
He is a good doggy, but at the moment he's
a disruptive doggy.
Yeah, he's being a very weird doggy.
Yeah. Sound changed thanks to deciding I couldn't be asked to try and work out what was going wrong with my computer, so I've signed in on my phone, which means I don't have video. Well,
okay.
Don't have video unless I turn the video on that.
Behave.
Fair enough.
For dog.
Oh, now he's got video.
I'm talking to the dog. Don't take this the wrong way, but I do expect you to be able to self-control your behaviour.
And also too.
Really? You've met me.
Yes.
With a conventional Charles de Gaulle hull, you're taking a capability hit because you have to sacrifice so much more hull volume for fuel now.
Yeah, it's just.
And then you're going to be taking another capability hit because you're going to be devoting weight to Catabar system and Catabar capable aircraft.
Well, that's not so much. That's not so much of the biggest problem you really have is having only one carrier. Because that means, let's put it this way, standard carrier operations, I know people try and keep claiming, well, why do you not, why is it usually rules of 1's available if out of 3? It's because of saltwater, but it's also because of the systems involved and the sheer amount of redundancy and checks you have to go in from all the things you have to go through for warhead systems. Because believe it or not, carrying something around versus carrying something which goes boom, preferably in the direction you want it to around, doesn't work. Right, excuse me a second, I just have to deal with a poodle. Run.
Oh dear.
Any thoughts, Dan?
In terms of the kind of 1 in 3, I mean, also apparently your crew get really grumpy if you keep them out at sea the entire time. I can't think why they say things like I have a family or I thought I had a family. Yeah, so that might have an impact.
It does have an impact, but it's more of a. It's always actually more of an interesting case. Is actually it's the machinery which breaks more often than the humans. The humans will keep going, and then once they get home, they won't re-enlist again, and then you've got all sorts of troubles with retention. But machinery, yeah, that needs to be fixed and repaired and all sorts of things done because, again, it's the levels you're operating at. It's like, you know, you are constantly moving the ship at high speed, low speed, doing all the different operations. It wears on the machinery. And if you only have one carrier, that means 90% of the time, it seems, you don't have a carrier. Just look at the track record of the Charles de Gaulle. It turns up on... When it does turn up, it's incredibly useful. But think of how many operations in recent years where the French haven't deployed a carrier. Because they haven't had one available. And it would be really useful.
Be right back. Gonna get some fluids. Another compounding misery for me is this week's Iron Brew shipment was not completed, so I am brewless.
Do you know what? That's probably worse for Runon than losing her job. Probably lack of Iron Brew is worse.
Technically, I haven't lost my job yet. Technically, but much like Drax several years ago, you don't get you don't. What was his issue? He was getting reviewed or something, and it's one of those things where you don't get to this stage and then go back to work. It's like when he was getting canned from his civil service job.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have fun with some of these things, and I'm yeah. They end up going down a weird alley. I've ended up learning a bit about UK employment law, and it's these sorts of things become a mess. I'm trying to work out what the hell to do with the camera, because at the moment it feels like there's too much of a view up my nose.
Don't worry. I get used to it. It can be worse. You can be looking at your nose and go, have I got something dangling out of there? Oh, frig it. Now, how do I quietly do this without looking like I'm picking my nose, but I really don't want to have something dangling out my nose?
Yeah. So that's kind of the problem.
Yeah. Just do that. Just do that. Just quickly fiddle with your nose. Just do that and hope it drops out.
Yeah. So I will try and reposition a bit and work out where I can stick it so it's not going to be quite so much of a problem. Let's try on the keyboard. Because also, the view I get is different to the view that it puts up on screen, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
The mini, I guess, is different, but never mind.
Yeah, it likes to do that. Don't worry. I get a slightly different display on OBS than I do on the actual screen, which is published out on Twitch and YouTube. It's slightly different on each one.
Yeah, well, I'm just getting it from Discord.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay, so
slightly less invasive up the nostrils. So
they're suggesting you lean forward a bit, but then he can't enjoy his beer as much. Or actually, no, we have to claim it's sparkling apple juice, don't we?
No, I'm allowed to be drinking. This is Birra Moretti. And yeah, the double chin thing. Why do you think I grew a beard? I realised it quite well. The problem is I'm sitting, leaning back on a sofa with my laptop on a little table in front of me and things, and I have a little bit of desk space in front of me to put the with a little phone stand, but it's just angled slightly awkwardly for the video because I don't use it for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the laptop decided that its microphone doesn't want to work at all. As I don't know why.
Yeah, well.
Stafford
So-
Thompson, what would be more useful at the Battle of the Bulge? 3 AC-130 Spectres or 6 A-10 Warthogs? Spectres.
Well, either way, you're annihilating annihilating the Germans. It's just
Yeah,
that
but
the
I would.
AC-130 Spectre. Either way, both of those types of aircraft are running out of ammunition and heading back. But you see, it's the range of ammunition you have on the AC-130, which means they can do a very comprehensive annihilation, whereas the Warthog basically goes out, blows up what it can, and then goes back and asks more to go and blow up. Either way,
You're also more like
Well, also too with the AC-130 is ammunition for the AC-130 is actually plausible in the 1940s.
yeah.
yeah,
It's like
because they basically have a Bofors gun, 40mm Bofors, and a 105mm howitzer as two of their main weapons, which you should have access to, at least a variation.
Yeah.
yes, Frank Barnwell. The weather may have been terrible, but C-130 pilots in general are cuckoo, and I imagine that the AC-130 pilots are advanced cuckoo, and you also have such fun things as thermal imaging.
And let's not forget the super cuckoo officer pilots that fly things like Fat Albert.
Yeah, so
Because that's how you really add on to a display team. You go, right, what's the thing we used to bring all our spare parts, etc. out here? Let's paint that for our colours and have that part of display as well.
and also you have the issue where an AC-130 can happily operate at high altitudes.
Yes.
Where it could, in theory, get above the cloud cover and it could possibly do guided fire missions.
Basically,
if it had.
and I'm going to put it this way. In my experience of working in their vicinity occasionally, the Warthogs would fly underneath the cloud layer and completely forget about the entire thing with the incentive of, you can kill a tiger. Which most modern Warthog pilots would go, and
How much do I have to pay you?
Go, you can kill it, and you'll be paid to do it. It's just going, that's the point at which, they're all just basically... At that point, all I will say is, every Warthog pilot, no matter what's their gender, will be fully erect in every single way they can be at the thought of that. But the AC-130s would, as you say, would go over that, and they probably do be a slightly better job. Slightly more accurate and more able to do it, but, the Warthog pilots, I just don't want to rule against them because I just know how excited they'd be to have the chance to kill tigers.
Yeah.
Night Fleet is just running late.
Fleet is just having a Sunday today. That's the way. There's a reason I'm sort of had a bit of a fun weekend. I've had an entire back wall and fence blow down. So great fun. Storm. Was hoping not to have to replace the wall and a wall for about another 12 months. Looks like the wall's decided it for me.
I mean, on the other hand, in terms of asking what's wrong with Fleet, I mean...
He does like the Hoche.
Yeah, we haven't yet got a formal diagnosis for that, and it's not quite clear what the syndrome will be called, whether it will be Hoche syndrome, Fleet syndrome, Filet syndrome,
Boop syndrome.
Dropped on the head too many times as a child, possibly.
That's cruel to his own parents, though. It's not their fault.
Dan,
what I will say is,
can you order someone in the UK to
go for a psych eval?
Yeah, or just attend treatment.
I mean, if he's in a public space, we could 136 get him 136 by the police. Technically, I think he has to be a patient for me to do it. But Tash has interesting powers as a psychiatrist.
And Tashi's supposed to be coming with us to Japan, so she can get a personal a personal diagnosis.
Yeah, she can offer a diagnosis, and then we can offer treatment.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're going to need to get some time on an fMRI machine for Fleet.
No. We don't need to waste time with that. We can just jump straight. Like I've been offering, we can just jump straight to the brain biopsy.
Yeah, but he likes Hoth. Are you sure there's enough there that's worthy of biopsy?
Well, I was just going to take the whole thing and drop it in a bucket and send it to the lab and see what they make of it.
This is getting a little bit cruel.
Yeah, it's a little bit cruel. Sorry, Fleet.
I will add though that some people are worried about the FW-190 intercepting the A-10. Don't take this the wrong way, but there are A-10 pilots who would absolutely love the opportunity to do air-to-air kills. And let's be honest, the aircraft of that era are something the A-10 actually might stand a chance of doing it against, especially with their cannon.
Failing that, they would just fly through the FW-190 and rely on the toughness of their airframe.
And do you really want to tell an A-10 pilot, no, you cannot engage the Luftwaffe, when they know if they engage the Luftwaffe, they can get a swastika on their kill board on the side of their fuselage?
Oh, good lord. There'll be swastikas and tiger tanks. It would just be a long row. Oh. So, Knights to go for one. Would I be right to think that if the IJN carriers sink a larger Tiger-based Yuesheng air battlecruiser at sea, it won't go ignored by the USNR and how they'd react? Well, first you're going to get a fair number of people going that it was sunk because it hadn't been modernised and upgraded properly, which is probably going to add arguments to the modernisation upgrade argument of those navies, in particular for their older ships. You're going to get some who are going to argue this means the year of the capital ship is over. They're going to be quietly taken off into various padded cells. And you're going to get some who try and take it and go blame it entirely on the Chinese and go, well, they didn't know what they're doing, so there's nothing to carry on us because they just didn't maintain proper watertight security. You always get a mixture.
Yeah, if you're saying it won't get ignored in terms of diplomatic or military sanctions,
it's not going to be the same. If you're sinking a fleet at sea, if you're fighting a naval battle, you sink a fleet at sea, no one's going to do diplomatic sanctions over that. It's when you attack cities you get diplomatic sanctions. That's actually one of the interesting things about naval warfare. When navies go to war, it really means it is a war, because frankly, there's once ships start blasting each other, there's enough firepower involved. There's no confusing it for, oh, this was an accident. It's amazing. A squad of infantry getting lost is one thing. A full-on warship firing its missiles is completely different, no matter, or firing its guns. But the thing is, when you're dealing with a ship being sunk at sea, that's, again, it's part of a war. When you're attacking civilian cities, that's when things start getting diplomatic.
I was just thinking about the that incident in Qingdao, or Qingdao now is in, what was it, January 39?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, oops, my finger slipped. Yes, but your finger slipped on the fire all the guns button whilst they were aimed at, the main magazines of 3 Imperial Japanese Navy ships. One with each turret, with the 4th turret kind of backing them up. Plus, somehow you managed to tie in your 4-inch guns to the same circuit, targeting the bridges.
It was actually slightly cruel in that all the guns were targeted entirely on the bridges, and the fourth turret was targeted on the ashore headquarters. It was literally our first round will do guaranteed damage. And by the way, they made sure they were going to sink the ships because they also had the torpedoes ready to swing out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And meanwhile, the escort's just standing there and behind, like, I'm going to help too.
I have a 4-inch gun. It is going to use damage.
Yes. I have a 4-inch gun at close enough range that I can actually penetrate.
Yeah, well, that's actually the thing, is it's at close enough range that the 4-inch gun actually could penetrate some of the armour. Lord help them all. Oh.
I will shoot them with my pop-pop.
I wouldn't say no to someone coming to say hello, but you know.
Yeah.
Apparently someone's coming for a quick visit. Apparently there is something fluffy coming for a quick visit. They're both a bit upset by the things falling down. Hello.
Stephen Meyer. With how many wars have had combat
high enough for the camera to pick him up?
Or belligerents that were global, how many world wars could be argued for? How far past 2 could we be?
He's trying to get high enough he can be picked up by the camera.
Or are they called world wars because the risk of shifting the world order?
Technically, there's
4.
How many wars were global could... Well, basically, once a war takes place on...
It's on the screen. One of my favourite people's on the screen.
If I go to... record. I have been joined by a corgi to say hello. Hello. You're being good.
And he spotted somebody else on the screen.
I know, you're saying hello to Dan.
Yes! Hello! I haven't seen you for ages! Where have you been? You haven't visited!
Oh, I'm sorry about that, but yeah. Hey. So, well, basically, there are multiple world wars. The definition of world war is it's going to be taking place on at least 3/4 of the world's hemispheres. 3 out of 4 of the world's hemispheres. So basically, you've got to be across, which is why the Napoleonic Wars, technically, when they've got battles going on in India, battles going on in Africa, battles going on in the Caribbean and North America, as well as Europe, technically count as world wars. But we don't think of them as world wars, because we like to believe world wars are something of the industrial age, when you're mechanizing and mobilizing the world against each other.
And the 7 Years' War would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure the 30 Years' War would be. I think that was mostly fought in Germany, for what I understand. Also, it's another of those wars where I just feel you're going to really struggle as it's breaking out to persuade all the troops it'll all be over by Christmas. Oh, what are we calling this war?
Can I just put something?
30 Years' War.
Fox,
so maybe not over by this Christmas? No, maybe not.
Next Christmas?
Shame.
Yeah. There's always one. It's like, there's a reason why we technically nicknamed the Napoleonic Wars, etc., as the Second 100 Years' War, because basically there is about 100 years of non-stop fighting going on between Britain and France. And I'm not sure, I'm going to ask Rune on this question. If people do super chats, those still get put into the questions, don't they? They still get stored. So it doesn't matter whether it's the questions are live or not. They will take super chats.
Notionally, yes, but I've generally just been grabbing them manually and bringing them over to ensure that happens. Yeah,
super chats always seem to get in, or are theoretically supposed to always get in. It's only so technically we do that because honestly we don't get that many super chats, so we can have the system running that way. If we got onto Drac level super chats, or even worse or better depending on your perspective, Rin Penrose level super chats, which is what my mum keeps comparing me to at the moment, where apparently she was getting binged by super chats so often she couldn't actually complete a word because she'd set it up so it'd ping a Pikmin sound whenever a super chat came in, so she couldn't actually say any words because every time she started speaking, they just kept pinging in another super chat. And I try and explain to my mum regularly, as much as I enjoy being a historian, and I am a historian on YouTube, I'm not a VTuber. I do not have that level of popularity. But, yeah.
I still don't really understand what a VTuber is, but, you know.
Dan, please never say this to my mother. She'll sit you down and explain it all to you.
Both of you to assume that she's not in one of the chats listening.
Yes, she probably is, but if he doesn't say it in person, he might escape.
Michael Couch, what would be the effect if the French, not the British, bought the Kildives Suez Canal shares?
A small, sharp war.
Okay.
There's a fox. I can make you a VTuber if you wish. Not yet, but actually, there might be something coming on that. But yeah, I can't really talk much about it. But there's a reason I can say no. I have to say no at the moment, but I can't talk much about it. But let's put it this way: we've got lots of plans of when we get to Japan, including something which might really freak out some of my my colleagues.
Your ship-shape colleagues or your academic colleagues?
Oh, both, but the ship-shape ones mostly.
Oh, okay.
What are you
Black
planning?
If most of the U.S. areas...
I have plans. And...
Why are you allowed to have plans?
Because I'm the one who's organising it.
That's not a reason. That's a threat.
Look, in nicest way, what can I say? It was either if I can't beat them, I shall join them, sort of thing. So I've just said, for Japan. I said my mum wanted to see if she could arrange something special for us all, so we've arranged it. We might be having a really special time while we're in Japan.
Foxo, are you saying that Dr. Clarke's VTuber would look something like Noxie?
No, I would be one of the very rare male VTubers. Because the reason I would want a male one is literally because there are so few of them. Male one, and I'm not sure. I have been giving it some thought though recently for a very good reason, and I've given thought to lots of different things. So this is all stuff which is going to potentially come up in the Japan trip, but I can't say anymore, and I can't discuss it. So I'm not going to. But yeah, there is lots of fun potentially coming.
Foxo, you.
Oh, and don't worry, Foxo. There will be something, if it does happen, there'll be something included special for you as well.
Black Horse. If most of the U.S. carriers were destroyed in Pearl Harbor, would USS Ranger be sent to the Pacific? If not, what would be done instead? King is going to be crying in the way that only Admiral King can.
He's going to be crying by chucking senators out of their offices at highest velocity through their windows.
Let's put it this way. There will be no need for an East Coast blackout because it would be rendered irrelevant by the incandescence of Admiral King's rage. You would actually probably be able to see it in Europe unaided on the ground. So you've got one of the Lexingtons is in the West Coast, so that will get surged forward. Hornet is going to be the production tempo for Hornet is going to be changed to yesterday.
It was already going pretty fast.
Well, now it's going to go to last week.
I think they're also going to. I think also, in nicest way, they're going to probably ask the British how quickly the British can finish off their carriers, because the British have got some carriers
Yeah.
further along in production, and they're probably going to want to borrow some of the British carriers as well.
And yeah, they'll probably say, what assets are you missing that would make those carriers go together quicker? And then slap those on the first fast cargo ship.
The argument the British probably turn around and go, well, actually, we're not missing anything. It's just we've had manpower issues because of where Churchill's early decision, and so that's why we've been delayed. We can put them together more quickly. It's just that's going to slow down production of escorts or something like that, because we're going to have to disrupt the other things now to get them back into production, get them back up to full speed. At which point, America's probably going to go, yes. So, what do you, in nice way? Yeah, Flower class can wait.
How far? I'm trying to remember how far along they are at that stage, and whether they could have put them in the water and just shipped them over to somewhere like Norfolk, or
well, they don't even need that. If I remember correctly,
we should just fix the
Implacable and Indefatigable are both launched in December 1942, so they've been launched, and all the materials for them are sitting there. They're not completed till August and May 1944 because of the time it takes to put the stuff on. So pretty much everything's sitting there. They're launched.
Yeah,
in December 42. So, you know.
Fun Police has a good description of Admiral King. He would become a new experimental reactor core or boiler core. And you would just be able to, you would literally create the fastest boiler-powered ship in the U.S. Navy by putting King in the boiler and just using him as the heat source versus oil.
I now have visions of a young Rickover trying to kind of control the power on that by kind of gently pushing in notes saying, you know, something else has been sunk just to kind of keep the fury at the perfect level. Or one of the senators has said, why don't we just buy more US Army Air Force bombers and use them, because they'll do all the work and the Navy is a bit redundant. You know, that's when you need
that sort of thing would send it overreaction and would send King into Congress killing people.
I mean, it might result in one of those meltdowns where he just goes straight through the bottom of the just goes straight through the bottom of the ship.
The short answer is it probably would involve Ranger ending up with the Pacific Fleet. But honestly, the US Navy really worry about having her there because they don't like putting her in actively contested waters. I mean, even using it for the operation she's used on in the Atlantic, that's basically done with the proviso that the Royal Navy is providing everything to protect them. And she is literally there just as a flight deck. What is the ship that was built at the worst time for itself?
A-class?
Vanguard?
Not really, because I'm just thinking about the various. I'd say the ship which was built at the worst time for itself, it means that it was built completely out of time.
Hoche?
Not even the Hoche, no.
Well, I say the K-class.
I'd say
because
the Voltaire, which is the last of the Danton class battleships, the pre-dreadnoughts. The French were building, because she's literally laid down. In fact, the whole Danton class are laid down in 1908 and commissioned 1911. 1907, 1908. So they're all well after HMS Dreadnoughts come into being.
I say K-class
Voltaire is the last of those, but
I say K class because the technology has advanced to the point where the concept of a fleet submarine exists in people's minds, but not to the point where it is an actually doable tech in terms of practicality. So it's like, yes, we have this concept, and it looks like we have the ability to do it, and then they actually go and do it, and it's like, oh,
There's
you
also
can't do
another.
this.
There's also another option. The Blucher.
But
Honestly.
was she not? But honestly, didn't they just misuse her? Because the thing is, Blucher was a perfectly good ship, and if you just used her as she is our biggest, baddest armored cruiser, she would have been fine. The problem was they went, this is a battle cruiser, and
The problem
Royal
was they
Navy
didn't
battle
have
cruisers
enough
went,
battle cruisers, so she had to fit into the
No,
role.
it's not. I mean, that one's a yeah. I still kind of think Vanguard, just because she was that little bit too late, and so she didn't get to see any war service, and came into being just as there were big cuts and people were making, I mean, the Navy was struggling almost to justify its continued existence full stop in the face of nukes and everything, let alone.
Yeah, it was another period of this new super weapon means we don't need anything else but it. Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Not so much the Je n'école as the École Moron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all at Colmore.
Jonathan Moon pushes forward Polyphemus, and Seneca Nero half jokingly puts forward Hermione 2014.
We won't be that cruel about Hermione.
I think Hermione makes complete sense. She's a perfect stealth ship. How much sound will she make going through the water when she's sneaking up on a Russian submarine?
A surprising amount.
No engine noise to be masking or anything.
Ships are really, really quiet. It's one of the strangest things you can be on a modern warship. You can be not far away from a modern warship when it's going past, and it will seem almost silent. And they are really quiet. Oh, we have had a super chat put in.
Thank you, Steve. Matthew Blarians, are there any similarities between the Guardian Royal Navy today?
I would say both have suffered from prolonged periods of being the dominant force in peacetime, and both allowed to get themselves very unbalanced because of this, especially in their training and support of junior officers.
Yeah, they're both at the stage where the admirals who made their reputations wouldn't actually make it through the door into the academy, let alone kind of graduate. And they're expecting totally unreasonable things of their officers.
USS Montana, how would you modernize Vanguard? See Iowa. Also, when are you modernizing Vanguard?
Depends where I'm doing it, but I think one of the things I might do is remove the aft guns and replace them with a helicopter facility and hangar facility.
Is her fantail that short?
Hmm?
Is her fantail that short?
If I want to have a hangar,
I want to have missiles as well.
if I want to have a hangar and missile system, in nicest way, I might as well get rid of. If I get rid of the aft guns, that makes life a lot easier than I have the forward guns. Replace some of the secondaries with some missile systems as well. Upgrade the rest of the remaining gun and secondaries to radar guided 3-inch, like you have on Tiger. And
I mean,
yeah,
you could just do an aft flight deck conversion with VLS in the.
God no. I like my things actually to be survivable, and VLS probably would be come along far later than she would actually have a conversion.
Mm.
Hey, it'll be fine.
Foxo, this is what happens when Dragon isn't within newspaper range. For fun, a weird wingwoman appeared before the PM and made a deal. The British Air Force, Armed
Armed
Forces,
forces.
will aid the Third Crusade and ensure the kingdom survives for 100 years. And in return, all debt of the UK is paid off in full. How will they do this?
What is the Third Crusade?
I'm trying to work out because the
Third Crusade was when Richard I and King Philip II of France and Barbarossa all decided to go and reconquer the Holy Land. It's known as the King's Crusade, and I think that's what Foxo's asking about. It's good you admit this, Dragon.
Dragon responds to the newspaper booping with, "Trust me, I have tried. There's nothing that will stop her."
So, yeah, the thing is, if it's the Third Crusade, how will they help? If you could go back in time and help if you could send forces back in time for Third Crusade, they could. The modern armed forces could do a huge amount of damage.
Hello, I'm a Challenger 2 tank.
Pretty much. Richard Line
yes,
contact. Yeah.
I see you have built a wall. Behold, variable fuse, 120 millimeter smoothbore, high explosive round.
No.
We have
it's
rifles.
It's rifled and it's
Crusader, the Challenger 3 is going to have the smoothbore, I think, when it's had the upgrade. Honestly, you don't. Most of the box units could have fun when they're in the FV 413 43. The Stormer. That would be having a well old time. Pretty much in the Crusader era, our forces going back in time, as long as you can keep them supplied logistically, it's kind of like deploying the Martians. There is just nothing that Saladin's forces can really do. They will very efficiently and very quickly do, because you have to remember, the thing they have, the big advantage modern forces would have over the forces in that period, is they can take water with them in huge, great big trucks.
And they can talk on radios to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, they can also quickly and efficiently return wounded soldiers to combat.
And pretty much, you would have, honestly, your most viable thing might well be a Land Rover with a machine gun on it.
You know, it's you break if a modern squatty breaks his leg, it's like, oh no, splint it. We'll see you in 6 weeks. As I make Dan cringe internally at my optimistic assessment of how well a soldier's leg will heal. But
It'll take 12 weeks, but close enough.
And in that time frame, you break a leg, you're lame for the rest of your life. In all likelihood, you are some degree of lame.
Yeah.
So.
But it's one of those things of when you go and whenever you take your stuff back in time, if they're going back sufficiently in time, if it's anything more than 50 years, the difference in force capabilities is enormous. It's even a case of if you took back in time, let's say if you took the fleet from the Battle of Trafalgar back to Salerno. In a nice way, Nelson would massacre them in like 2 minutes. The sheer amount of firepower he'd bring back.
I'm just trying to think of the fleet from the Battle of Jutland at Trafalgar. They did mostly have ram bows.
The Franco-Spanish force wouldn't. They would just wonder why is the horizon filled with light and the sky filled with screams.
Follow up. How would the modern UK respond to the entire armed forces disappearing and all their debt being paid off? How do you build a forces from scratch? Start by hiring people who've been retired, not recently, not that long ago, and they will form a nucleus and then start training, use the training academies and build people up and take time. But honestly, the entire debt being paid off, probably very happy, and they would be, a nice way, that amount of money paid off. Theoretically, we could. Then it's going to be trouble. Be trying to stop the governments jumping straight into massive debt again. But
well,
considering I was told by an economist recently that actually, for countries carrying no debt, is actually a bad thing for a country not to be carrying some debt. And see, the thing is, I can understand debt if you put it in line of a mortgage. Okay. I don't like having a credit card. I have one, but I've explained in the past. I have it because it paid for doing a book, but I don't like having it. But the thing is, if you consider capital investment, infrastructure investment, like getting a mortgage on a house, you're paying this money into a mortgage, so you have the place to live and function, which you need to operate from, then that's fine. But if you're just taking on debt for operating budget, then that's a bad thing. You should never be operating in debt. There are some things which have to, which is kind of strange these days, but the way we structured farming and a few other things more, well, they have to function in debt. But ideally we'd want to avoid that. But the way government should run it in ideal world, in my view, has always been that unless it's for things like building a new hospital, building roads, building a school, building a port, doing those things, you shouldn't go into debt.
Knight, that is not a concern for the U.S. government. That is the UK government. That is a uniquely United States concern.
What's Knight worrying about?
It would enable dropping the debt. The debt would enable new spending, more spending.
Yes, not really. It's a case of not. They would have to vote it. They'd have to vote it through Parliament. How would Admiral Beatty react to the US fast battleships if he would have been around? He would have been overjoyed, but also would have been upset that they got them first. And frankly, yeah.
Oh shoot! It's Beatty.
Yeah.
He's probably doing as best as he can to make that his flagship.
I have to say, the interesting thing was I was having a discussion the other day with someone who is a far more knowledgeable about Jellicoe than I will ever be. And we were talking about the design arguments, and they said that, as they understood it, Jellicoe had actually argued in favour of the F designs over the Nelrod designs, because of the strategic value of having ships which were fast enough to get around the world. He felt that they should use those F designs as the basis for the design, and starting off with a speed of 29 knots, and then work out things that you want to add in before you start taking stuff away, if you know what I mean, on the speed front. So what he was talking about seems to be far closer to being a fast battleship. And they were close enough as it was to being one. They were technically battle cruisers, but they were technically battle cruisers in the way that, well, if we modified a subdivision a tad and we had a little bit more armor coverage... Oh, what have we got here? Black Horse, how badly did the British want to destroy the German Navy when it was the Allied race of Berlin at the end of World War II? The British basically let the Americans and Russians race for Berlin. The British race for Hanover. And wherever the German naval bases were.
To be fair, we have a historical interest in Hanover.
Yes.
I think.
We do have a historical interest in Hanover, but we also have a historical obsession with making sure our opponents do not have a navy left at the end of the war.
That is because it makes it easier for us to remain dominant. And if it is dominant, it can then go and pick up the British army from whichever cock-up it gets itself into.
Linguistics. Theoretically. But yeah, the British are always more concerned with... It's like, what were the British concerned with getting their hands on at the end of World War II? German naval secrets. That's why there's like 2/3 of our teams are hunting towards their naval bases, not their land things. It's actually one of the reasons why we find the prison camp, the concentration camps that we do. They're the ones which were looking at, which had naval things nearby, if you look at them.
Seneca Nero, what naval shipyard had the worst reputation of any nation? I would say probably some of the Russian ones, or whichever shipyard built Hosh. But the problem is with naval shipyards having bad reputations, they don't stay naval shipyards for long. They either find themselves under new management quite quickly, or they find themselves completely out of business because nobody orders them.
Oh, good lord. Foxo. We never say no, but we also do note that you're telling us that Dragon has made a mistake. He left you alone with the cash card.
I mean, I'm not going to turn down contributions to the Rehome a Transfem Fund. Although apparently now Pally has been kneecapped, so I will have to find something else.
We're going to have to set you up with a Kofi?
Probably.
That seems to be the most sensible one. That's my backup one. That's the one I have going on Twitch and doing all the things elsewhere. Kofi is sort of my backup to... well, I have Kofi. I, of course, have Patreon. And Patreon and YouTube are my two really important. Honestly, there was a friend of mine who was talking to me yesterday going... Because, of course, I'm still complaining about the tax bill. Because paychecks have been late. And they're going, you know... What, aren't you going to miss all those paychecks? So you're changing your jobs over and you're doing more on YouTube. And they're going, no. Because whilst I might be earning technically less money and have less overall income, the fact is YouTube and the lovely people support there, that I know the money when it's coming is going to come on a certain date. And believe it or not, you can structure economics far better around the knowing which date the money's going to come in and it reliably coming in on date than you can, I'm going to have a larger sum, but I don't know when it's going to be here.
Yeah.
Because you cut your cloth to suit the fit.
One other thing about the naval shipyards with bad reputations. I guess technically not naval, but there were a few of the Liberty ships where quality control slipped a bit, and there's something in the what's the name of the DNC who was working with Henderson and things. There's something in his there's something in his diary, I think, about I think it was one of the Clyde based. He was looking at who could potentially be building another set of ships, and one or two of them were kind of rated as okay but not great as shipyards compared with others. And the person who said HMS Captain, that was built by Camel Lairds, who normally build very good ships, although a worryingly large proportion of them do seem to end up sinking.
They build them to
But
the
they're still very
designs
good.
they're spec'd.
Yeah. But because they built Captain, they built Prince of Wales, they built Ark Royal. Not ideal as a list, but they are 2 out of 3 are good ships. Yeah. I'm now struggling with some of the other bits.
Ethan Yang. If technological developments result in a shift towards primarily or entirely uncrewed carrier air groups, would nuclear supercarriers still be necessary? They would still
Yes.
be necessary for any nation which deem them necessary, because the economics of big hull, more power, high speed don't change regardless of the airframes you have on the flight deck. A nuclear aircraft carrier is a very efficient asset in terms of fuel burn for over the whole life.
The point you often have to think about with nuclear power, etc., is that it's about the strategic mobility of the asset. It's not we've got nuclear power, so we've got a large aircraft carrier. No, you could build a 100,000 ton carrier with that same hangar space, but you can make it conventionally powered. But it's going to have to carry a lot of fuel to keep it moving, etc., and do all the things you want to do. And you're not going to be able to do it, use it the same strategic way you can use a nuclear powered carrier in terms of we can rapidly move it from one theatre to another. It's there can be a focus on the wrong things, because you see often people often you find focusing on the headlines of something of an asset, and that might not be what actually drives it. Size of aircraft carriers is driven by the size of aircraft and the air group you want to carry. That's it. It's that simple. How many aircraft do you want to carry? How big are those aircraft? And then you adjust everything around it. That's, I remember this from when me and Drac were doing our two historians, and we were talking about it. One of the things we've talked about this a lot, but I think that was the first video we talked about it publicly. The fact that you define the air group size. You're almost defining around the hangar size, right? I want to accommodate this many aircraft. Then that's going to decide what my hangar size is going to be. Then that's going to decide what my ship's going to be. And you work in terms of beam, in terms of how many aircraft you want to cross, how many length, how many aircraft you want along.
And Ethan kind of added another little comment about what I meant was the carrier still needs to be so large if the aircraft are all uncrewed. Yes, they do, because the size of the aircraft is what allows them to do the mission, not whether or not they've got people on board. And if you think about how relatively few of the 6,000 people aboard a carrier are actually pilots, or go up in the aircraft, it's negligible. The rest of them are all there to service the aircraft or service the ship to service the aircraft.
Basically, in many ways, actually, this is one of some disturbing things. As when recently they're working out based on a squadron of uncrewed aircraft, which are expected to do the same duties as crewed aircraft, you actually found the numbers of personnel required goes up. Because the aircraft are no longer restricted in their flight time, but the hours a human can be awake, so it's entirely down to the machine hours. So you can actually get them operating slightly more efficiently. But that means you need more maintainers and more people to service them. And more pilots on duty who you can swap in and out of flying those drones. Could you surf down a mountain in a Nimitz class?
Kind of.
If you had a big enough mountain with a big enough run, you could do it, but you're only doing it once.
And all your airplanes might fall off.
Just don't take the airplanes with you. Don't take the airplanes with you.
Define surf.
Well, it would ride down the mountain on an avalanche. Like the crest of a wave.
I feel like that's not really surfing, but okay.
It technically is.
I'm kind of assuming that it's got lost and it thinks it's on water, but it's actually on ice. And almost just kind of trips. But I'm trying to think what the bulbous bow would do.
Oh, that's going to be crushed.
The thing's probably going to roll. The hull is probably going to roll over and start to sausage roll down the mountain because it's just too top heavy and too unstable to stay up.
No, the Nimitz hull is not top heavy. It's one of the most balanced hulls in the world. It's got a very good center of gravity and metacentric point, so it's got nice and low, especially if you haven't got the air group aboard.
Yeah. Trying to see if
that's right. In answer to your question, you couldn't pay me enough to be aboard it while I was doing it. Because if it hits the rock the wrong way, it will start turning into a sausage roll the whole way down the hill. But if it's high enough up and it's flat enough, it's got enough snow beneath it coming along with it, yeah, it will surf. Matthew Blarians, what would the purpose of small catapults on surface commands be? The same as they were historically. They're allowed to launch for the launch of reconnaissance aircraft. Ramal, questions are closed at the moment. The system will open shortly. I think. Runon, how many more do we have left?
You ask all the rough questions, boss.
I know.
Well, we got just shy of 30.
I'm terrible to my girl Sunday.
Huh?
Well, you're not Gal Friday. It's a Gal Sunday.
I am concerned.
Well, no, it comes to the thing. You know, you used to have assistants who would just be your assistants on a Friday, and they were called the Gal Fridays.
Let's see. We've got about 10 in the queue. I'm going to let it trickle down to... right now I've got 13, 12, 13. We'll get through 2 or 3 more, and then I'll reopen.
Okay. Got Emperor Rumsfeld.
Rumsfeld.
How ridiculous could machine gun farms have gone had autocannons never existed for air work? Oh, okay, on this one, I actually have seen a picture of a study where one was, and I kid you not, 20 machine guns hooked up to a single trigger unit.
Need more DACA. What?
Sounds like the American dream.
Basically, the thing is, an autocannon is just... they were all 12.7. The thing is, a 20mm cannon, etc., and a 40mm cannon are basically scaled-up machine guns. If you look at the Bofors and the mechanism used in the Bofors and the mechanism used in the Oricon, they are not that dissimilar to a machine gun mechanism. They are stressed up and built up to support the larger caliber weapon, but they really are just machine guns grown large. Which actually did lead to an interesting discussion whether you could actually scale them up to make them into a 16-inch shell launching gun.
Yes, but can you imagine the size of the brass cartridge?
Yeah, pretty much that was the response, but some people did actually do some theoretical work on it. So there is somewhere in this world a theoretical study done in 1943, I want to say, on whether or not you could scale up a machine gun mechanism to support 16-inch shells.
I'm also now trying to think of...
Your tactics confuse and frighten me, sir. But yes, I think if by some weird history you never got anything above a 50, your limit on AA firepower would become crew space, not deck space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You literally would not be able to carry. You would get to the point where you could not carry more crew. It wouldn't be a question of that officer on Enterprise saying, well, if we drop this thing and maybe, do we really need all of these Foley graphs? Maybe we can put another Bofors tube on here. Sirs." It would turn into a thing of, well, if we go to purely powdered milk, that will save us this many cubic feet of hull volume, and then we can put in another rack.
no, then we can put in another, load of machine gun ammunition. I just have visions of the guy on Enterprise going, we need to try and remove things for the excess weight and things. Points at something. Let's get rid of that. That's the Admiral. Yes, he doesn't help with the air defense. We must remove him.
Did I stutter?
And just kind of lifting up an Admiral and moving him to one side, especially because wasn't there at least one Admiral who was kind of quite sort of, a couple of them I think were quite small-framed guys and things, and so you just imagine somebody just picking them up, moving them to one side.
You can try that. It'd just be people getting historic revenge for Admiral Duncan picking up his crew. Steve Richards, put some people in good leadership roles around the Fonda child and give her a good captain.
Ian.
Fonda child?
Yeah.
Honestly, there's a very easy captain to give her at that time.
Easy?
Well, War of the Worlds is set in which year?
I can't remember. Is it 1902 or so?
Mm-hmm.
Jellicoe? BT?
Well, I was thinking more Percy Scott, but Because, if I'm not mistaken, at that point, Jellicoe is already an admiral.
Is he? I've lost track.
He's promoted to Rear Admiral in 1907, so he's the captain at that point, so he could be a captain. He could be a captain. That's his BT at that point. So, yeah.
Because BT actually... That kind of level of command BT can do.
Yeah.
It's when you promote him higher and expect him to lead things. And also choose his own staff that the problem appears.
Yes.
Mm.
He really isn't good at choosing his own staff.
Yeah.
He's really not good at choosing his own staff.
Well,
it would be interesting. You could give. Yeah, I said you could give Jellicoe the command. That would be intriguing. Jellicoe in charge of it. You could give BT in charge of it. BT would do quite a good job. The trouble is, whoever you put in charge to survive that incident is going to be absolutely made for life in terms of their career service. Lord Corkin, no, you do not. Steve, you don't have to do that, and I don't think he's around. I think he's too senior. He's too junior at that point to be put in charge.
Fortunately.
Georgi Zukov. I mean, the Royal Navy did do a study for auto-loading 16-inch guns for Lions Mark 3 or 4. Yeah. But the Royal Navy had been working on making auto-loading guns for a while, and that was actually part of their reason for looking at the 14-inch gun, was they had been working on... They did have things around which meant they felt they could make an auto-loading 14-inch gun. Just they couldn't in the weight scenario. If they'd gone with auto 14s and weight arounds, and it was the case of they were worried about if the machine would work, but also some of the scenarios that comes up, and this is me reading between the lines because both me and Drac are hunting the documents. We found various documents talking about there being an auto-loading potential for capital ships and the auto-loading systems and studies working for it. And then they go something quiet in about the late 1920s. Which to us is suspicious, as those people are both those people are both promoted and part of the direct naval constructors at that point. But they suddenly stop producing papers on the topic that get published in the Naval Institute, in the Institute magazine on it. So they're both involved in it, both working it, but they're now quiet. One of the arguments which comes up around about 14-inch is also seems to be about making it increased rate of fire. He's talking about increased rate of fire, but when we actually get the 14-inch, it says it's got a similar rate of fire as you expect from a 12-inch, 16-inch gun. Anything like that. There is nothing really special about them. But I've had the discussion with people, and it's you couldn't... I think the thing was they wanted to have 12 14-inch guns because that would give them a guaranteed rate of fire that would be equivalent to 16-inch guns, but I think you couldn't actually make a triple... you couldn't make it work unless it was a triple turret with the space for... or the space on the beam-wise for the auto-loading... for what they would need for the auto-loading machinery. And I think that would have still had to be in a triple 14. It couldn't be in a triple 15. And the thing is, if you're trying to be discreet about the fact you've got an auto-loading 14-inch gun, and you've got something coming service which is 9 14-inch guns, and everyone else is building something 9 16-inch guns, there's going to be some people going, what the frigate's going on? So at least with 10...
And then you kind of go...
You look like you were aiming for 12.
Nothing's happening. Just if I pull the trigger with it set to... I have single shot, and then I have auto. Or maybe 3-round burst. Boom, boom.
But one of the interesting things we did look at was the theory was that it would have... the auto-loading system would have been able to guarantee and maintain 3 rounds a minute for a 14-inch gun. That's what me and Drac are drawing from looking through the documents and documents we found and what we talked about with each other.
And if you combine that... If you get that technology at a point when, if you can be at a point where you can get that technology and radar for fire control, and go, these technologies will be sufficiently solid that they will both work at about the same time, then
We will do, Foxo.
Destructive potential of that would be...
No, they couldn't do 5 rounds rapid. They were just a constant 3 rounds per minute. There was no...
No, 5 rounds rapid is the phrase from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I appreciate... Thank you. It is noted. I just... yeah, I mean, that would... That's the point when the difference between the 14 and the 16-inch shell damage will become more negligible, because you'll have hit them with several 14-inch before they stand any real chance of hitting you with a 16-inch.
No, they didn't actually manage to get the auto. They didn't put the auto-loading in, and they didn't go down that route. They decided to go to quad 14s instead and try and go for 12 14s, as they felt that would... that was a more reliable route to go down, it seems to me. But what you would have been talking about you would have been talking about something which would have had quadruple turrets which would have been the size of the quadruple turret, but they'd have been triple turrets because of the space needed for the various systems. And that's part of the problem with it. It's the space it would take up.
But it could have been beautiful.
Yeah.
And then, just trying to think about the time delay, there's a non-zero chance the Americans would be able to take a look at that technology. and get it 16-inch guns for the Iowas?
Probably not.
They
Because,
try.
They might try, but it's going to take them a long time to actually get that to the level, because you have to remember the weight increase of an Iowa versus...
Yeah, it's the 10,000 tons. It's 35,000 tons to 45,000 tons.
Yeah.
Standard displacement, at least in theory. And then they just don't have to worry about, the filing off the edges and things to get it in weight.
It's the displacement of the actual... It's actually the moving on the mechanisms to move and load the shells. The weight of the shells. That's the reason why even the British were looking at 14-inch over 15-inch. That was the argument for going 14-inch still, because even going to a 15-inch shell, difference between and a 14-inch shell, it was still considered too heavy.
I mean, when you're talking about moving those sorts of things at significant speed, yeah, it is.
Yeah. And doing it precisely and efficiently. So yeah, it would have been an interesting scenario.
I'm just having visions of the kind of aircraft launching catapult sort of thing, except now they're just firing off up a continuous chain to get them up to the machine gun 14-inch in terms of the power and weight and things. Oh god.
3 rounds a minute in any weather. Now that's solving. Storm beam repair. Yes. Well, the thing was, if you think about that, and if you have 9 14-inch shells, 9 guns, and try and fire a 14-inch, you are firing. You will have 27 rounds. If you've got a standard flight time, let's say a distance of your shells are going to be landing 2 minutes after you fire them, you will have 54 rounds in the air before they hit their target. And if they are combined with radar guiding, as Dan has pointed out, then that's going to be pretty scary. And you have to remember, same in the 1930s, the British are looking at radar guidance. One interesting thing is when they start looking at it and they go, oh, this technology, this is the same studies which we were looking at doing, we decided not to do in the 1910s. Yeah, that provided the radar rangefinder. And I have to clarify something from the other day, because I was talking about radar in the video which was on Thursday night, and some people thought I was talking about full-on radar, Aegis level, sort of those sort of things. No, I'm talking about a range-finding radar. Basically, instead of what I really should have been saying was a RAR, radio-assisted arranging, rather than radar, which is radar-assisted detection ranging. It was basically, it would have given you the range of the ship. Now the thing is, that's different from that's not going to give you that in World War One is still going to be earth-shattering, because if you've got an accurate radar provided range and you're just relying on your visual systems to provide you course and speed estimates, think about that.
But you can, because remember that if you know the range properly and effectively continuously, then if you're tracking it, your rate of change meter will be able to tell you a lot of the other information you want and need pretty quickly. So actually, you are talking about achieving a pretty certain kind of fire control solution within a couple of seconds at a time when basically everyone's doing everything through mental arithmetic or a piece of paper and a pencil, and
suddenly you have certainty for one part of the equation. We know the distance to this ship,
and you can, but it also means you can then calculate the other stuff, which are actually easier because they're just on your ship and they're just with reference to your ship. And whilst yes, the time of flight of the shell is going to be significant, even at the shorter ranges, you're potentially talking 20 seconds. And in theory, the ship can move in that time. At the same time, it is still tens of thousands of tons of steel. And it has a degree of momentum.
Yeah.
And doesn't like to move so much in radically different ways to the way it was moving.
It would have been a 9-gun autoloader, Garrigan. It would have been basically because again, you have to please. I'm going to preface this as we found no document which covers this, none at all. But we found these papers, we found these things, and we've put it together in discussions. And basically, this is probably going to be something which we're going to have to talk about in a future Two Historians. If I can get Clarke on him because he's so busy. And talk about it because we can talk about it and go through, the autoloaders and the sort of discussions which were potentially happening, and it's one of those things of, it's an interesting system. It's an interesting idea, but it would be a triple turret which would take up the same space as a quad turret.
But it would be doing interesting things to the enemy. But this is the whole weight of fire thing, which the Royal Navy do seem to have slightly cottoned onto ahead of the other major navies of the kind of large battery of 6-inch as opposed to the 8-inch guns. And the idea of realistic battle ranges.
Strider, we always miss you.
As opposed to kind of crazy ones. I'd
say also, if you consider that, there's also the fact that if you're a German ship or any other ship, and you suddenly find yourself fighting a King George V, and its shells are blasting off every 20 seconds at you, what's that going to do to your sense of morale? Because you can't keep up with that rate of fire.
My Bismarck is so perfect and is the miracle of engineering and... Wait, has the boiler broken again?
Oh no.
It's more a case of, if you think about the rate of fire of Bismarck, which underway at sea, etc., worked out as roughly 3 rounds every couple of minutes.
I have radar control! Boom!
And in that same time, you've got the British... King George V has fired 6 salvos of 9 shells, which is, again, 54 shells. You fired 24 shells. That's 54 chances of damage versus 24 chances of damage.
Yeah.
I know, you might go, well, the 15-inch shell is going to cause more damage than the 14-inch. Yes, if it hits, it might do, depending on where it hits and... all the other things. But the odds of you getting a 14-inch shell hitting versus a 15-inch shell hitting under this scenario, when they're firing more than twice the number of shells in the same time frame, starts to cumulatively affect you.
Anyway.
Yeah. Why didn't the British use the German loading system? Because they had their own systems, and the Germans were mostly using smaller caliber weapons, which enables you to lift, because you're lifting lighter weights, so you can move them faster. That's the big thing.
Yeah. I'm going to kick us on to the next one here. Ramal, thoughts on the Japanese pre-war Circle 1 program, and do you think it's too little and too late?
Circle 1 was, I think, their first building plan after they quit the treaties. I'd need to check to be sure. So they got up to about Circle 3, and then the war happened, and their plans, any sort of big plans like that, became about as close to reality as Plan Z.
Well, Circle 1 was the plan, which was... It's the one submitted in 1930, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember when it was submitted, that's the thing.
And it's basically, it's got the Megamis, it does it's 1930 Hatsuharas, Shiaratsus. I
mean, I think the Japanese pre-war building plans were...
I think the problem with this is going to sound terrible, but I think the problem with the Circle One and what it needed to have in it was it has minesweepers and mine layers in etc. and sub chasers, but it builds 2 sub chasers. And realistically, in Japan at this point, you need if you've got war coming in a few years' time, you need to be really cranking on the sub chasers. They're building some submarines, but they need to crank it on. And the thing is, the minesweepers, the sub chasers, these are all ships which are not limited in terms of construction. And yeah, Yamato does limit them, but Yamato's not past sort of 1930. The first, the second.
But it's also that they're building at this stage.
Yeah,
they've got that. This is all the pre-Fourth Fleet stuff when they're building things so top heavy that the German destroyers of World War II look like stable, good gun platforms.
The Circle 2 has Soryu and Hiryu in it. And again, if you look at it and go, well, okay, how many sub chasers are you building? None. Actually, no, I tell a lie. They do actually have some. They have submarine chaser number 3, which they built 1 of. They have a submarine chaser, which was small diesel. They tried out building 2 of those. And small turbine submarine chaser, they built 1 of. So they built 4.
I mean, it's fair enough if you're away and you are about to hit the copy button, a bit like kind of the British were gearing up to do with sloops.
But this is 1934.
Yeah, but the Japanese, what they needed to do was build those handful, test them out, and then just go lots. Many. Yeah.
Alright, 1934. When HMS Enterprise D-52 was announced for Azure Lanes, do we have a second part of this? Angel of the Iris event in 2022. People called her an imposter as her career was not the same as CV6. People called that...
Essentially, he's at... I'll scroll up to get it, but it was a question about, is this disrespectful?
No, it's probably based on the fact that few people don't know the history of HMS Enterprise. Like, in a nice way, she's often overshadowed by US Enterprise, but she wasn't an imposter. She's a light cruiser. She has a very good career for a light cruiser. She doesn't do the same as an aircraft carrier, but she's still a good ship. People calling her imposter seem to be, from my understanding of having read up about that, because of the questions of Azure Lane, were more people who just didn't realise that the Royal Navy had ships called Enterprise. And they just thought it was made up for just Azure Lane.
Hey, Cal. Alright, I'm going to reopen the queue for another 5 minutes.
Okay, so with that...
So that'll be at 16:10 if you're on the best coast of the U.S.,
or 21:10 if you are on Greenwich Mean Time, or Zulu.
Zulu was slightly different.
No.
Okay.
It's that we will sometimes go to Zulu +1 for British summertime.
Wait, you people get summer over there?
Yeah.
No, we get summertime.
We do get summer. In most way, there are parts of the country which get a lot of sun. There's parts of my country, like, if I manage to get it so we have the full 15 solar panels, which we're going to be fitting onto this house, if we can get it all through, we should probably be generating enough electricity in the sun from the sunshine we get to not only power the house, but you'll be earning a few £100 a month back in electricity, selling it to the grid. Because that's once you're on to 15 or more in Cornwall, you basically have almost a license to print money. As a homeowner.
If you were to take one of World Warship's fictional ships and be transported back to 1939, which ship would it be and why? I'm torn between a multi-class carrier.
Oh, a multi-class carrier would be a lot of fun.
Or HMS Minotaur.
Goliath.
And maybe take a lot Montana debt back from a US point of view. That would be fun. And I've lost track. The US has midways, I think. High tier carriers.
Yeah, but they built midways. We built midways. I'd probably take back either a Goliath or that quad, that 4-turret, 4-barrel Iowa variant that was like 12s or 14s.
Ooh, that sounds icky.
And just be like, hi, you will be fighting in the shade.
Yeah.
Can't remember if it was triple 4s or quad 4s, but
that does sound a bit I was going to say mean, but there's not really. I mean, fairness in warfare isn't really a thing.
The fairness in warfare is whatever stacks the deck, so as many of your people go home.
Yes,
and
that's fair.
End the war quickly, and you minimize casualties.
It'd be tempting to take HMS Plymouth back. Quad 6-inch.
Knight. I was raised as an electrician, making it extremely likely that I would always be. I wanted to be a fixed wing pilot.
I'm not sure what happened there, but we lost you. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. You hear me?
Yeah.
Now we do, but we lost you during that. It went quiet for some reason.
Okay.
I think
I might have moved out of the pickup cone.
I think I would want to take back in time Thunderer, and there is a reason for this. Because if I took Thunderer to the Battle of Denmark Straits, there'd be no doubt about the victor.
Dr. Clarke, make sure to change the banner in OBS. I've closed the queue. And now I might have made an angry Foxo.
Foxo, that one's quite a well-known thing. The advantages of the kind of G3 style all-forward design for minimizing your armor requirements changed as you got more aircraft threats, and so you needed to have more all-round protection, as opposed to just being
I have warned you two before about making angry Foxos, though.
It wasn't deliberate, and there's a nice message that was in before hers.
Yeah.
How am I a cheat? I told y'all 10 after. Well, guess what? When did I come to? Close to that 10 after. See, what Steve doesn't know is that Steve actually can open and close the queue.
Steve doesn't realize he can open and close the queue. I know. Yes, none of the admins seem to. None of the mods seem to realize this one yet.
And mods can do that.
I figured I probably could. I just don't know how, and it's more trouble than it's worth for me to try and figure out, because I will just break it.
I think there's a pinned comment in Masters at Arms chat.
It should be to explain all. Would putting a ski ramp on World War II aircraft carriers be a beneficial or hindrance for their operations? Well, Nightwolf 112, in that period it would be a hindrance, because Whilst some carriers do have do have their residual versions of a sort of ski ramp system. Mostly as aircraft go through the war, they're getting heavier and heavier, and the way to operate them and for them to land and take off is catabar. So the ski ramp would actually get in their way. There are not aircraft. The aircraft which are vertical, sort of short takeoff, etc., are things like Swordfish, which couldn't do it theoretically, but that's with rockets. And frankly, usually they're doing it with rockets. They're also taking off with a torpedo, and you don't want to do a ski ramp with a torpedo slung underneath.
I mean, without the torpedo, the Swordfish could potentially, if the carrier was just going fast enough into a headwind, just take off practically vertically off the deck. But these are the same aircraft that sometimes had to struggle to catch up with the ship that they were trying to land on, and could be overtaken by a speedy destroyer in a headwind. So,
James C. Stanley, WSC, warnings heeded. He is Prime Minister from 36 to 46. Impact and outcome. Now, I'm going to leave that to Dan a bit to start off with, because I am going to go see what the scratching on my door is going on. Because I have a corgi waiting outside, trying to get in, who's managed to sneak away. Or I have a poodle who's coming back to say sorry for woofing so loudly earlier at the microphone.
So,
What do you want?
Churchill, in arbitrary ways, gets power in 36. Bearing in mind this is still Parliament and everything, you do have a general acceptance that the rearmament is happening in Britain. At that stage, it's just gearing up. What you might get is a suspension of the theory that they were operating on for a while, which was that the rearmament couldn't kind of take away resources from couldn't take away resources from commercial activity. That's what I was trying to say. It's going to sound silly, or might sound silly. It will depend on what hat Churchill's got. Because this is a man who had been in charge of kind of air defences, had been in charge of...
Why was there your thumb up? There a thumb up symbol above your head?
Because I was counting using my thumb, and it thought I was doing a thumbs up.
Does it do it for me? No.
No, it's an iPhone thing.
Oh, it's an iPhone thing.
Essentially, we're too much of a peasant to understand.
Yeah. Us with our...
It's okay. I'm used to being a peasant.
Oh, peasants.
You really should come and live over in Britain then. Really not. So kind of Churchill, with any luck, would try to get the French to build up their army, and he would try and build up the navy. And if we're really, really lucky, he will recognise that the bombers you might be able to buy in 36 are not going to be the bombers you want to fight a war with in a few years' time.
I think one of the things I don't think he would. I don't think he'd renew to have the second London Naval Treaty. And I don't think the Anglo-German Naval Treaty would come in force.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd agree either of those.
I mean, there's also a question of would he get involved in the Spanish Civil War more when people start lobbing bombs or torpedoes at Royal Navy ships?
Do we think that Foxo and Dragon want to join this evening as Fleet's not here? Because they've both just joined the general chat.
Well, they've got a message in Masters, so let's find out.
You go check that out.
I could be cruel. I'll be back.
Yeah. If I go click on checking that out, it will show up on screen, so I won't do that.
Frank Barnwell, no, you have a 20-year-old cat that wants more food in their bowl. Not that they can't remember there's food in their bowl. They're just trying to persuade you that there's no food in their bowl. They can get more food in their bowl.
Yes. That's a very smart 20-year-old cat. Basically, I think if Churchill... I also think there are certain things which probably don't happen, because Churchill, let's be honest, if it's not... He's going to have longer with Henderson for Henderson to explain his plan. And the thing is, if Henderson's managed to get Churchill to buy into his procurement plan, his vision, which he probably be more successful than Chatfield, then you probably don't have the pause. But also, if you don't have the Second London Naval Treaty, etc., I could see you getting a lot more carriers and a lot more ships ordered earlier.
Oh. That could be pretty.
If they're ordered in 36, 37, they will actually be in service by World War II. Or soon into it.
Mm. Oh.
Laughs in admin.
Hello.
We are many.
Also,
We are many.
I would like to point out that Dragon's exact phrasing was, if you want to drag us in here, feel free. Otherwise, don't worry about it.
I was about to say, and I'll try and keep a better eye on Foxo, but
No, chat. They're being mean to me. Ignore me.
Well, never being mean to you, Fox.
you literally had your question
They're too
answered.
scared. They're too scared of you.
Let them continue.
Dylan Minute. RN have confirmed. Let me just check that one.
Mm.
I would say the Royal Navy are not changing Agincourt to Achilles because just a quick check of their own website and listing, they've got it still called as Agincourt on their own website, and usually they are pretty good at updating that fairly quickly. And I don't see any reason why they would change Agincourt for Achilles.
Agincourt annoys the French, which is always a good thing in the Royal Navy's book.
Yeah, that too.
And just the UK's book.
That too. So
Essentially,
when it's listed on the until it's changed, they change the listing on the actual Royal Navy website, I don't take any rumours. And I did a quick check and quick Google check to check if there'd been any formal announcements. There's nothing on the Ministry of Defence page, and there's nothing on the Royal Navy stuff. And they would be announcing if they're doing a thing like changing a ship name after they've awarded it and talked about it with its associations and memberships. Yeah, they will be a big announcement, and there'll be a big reason for it.
Dr. Clarke, I probably don't actually want to know the answer to this question, but I will ask it anyway. Exactly how many decisions in British government are made or modified just to mildly annoy the French? The silence is deafening.
Yeah.
What are your top 3 favourite maritime mysteries? I'll let you all go first. Start off with Foxo if you want. Foxo?
Foxo.
Foxo did
Honestly,
say something about
the Mary
ahead.
Celeste, honestly.
What happened to the Sydney and the crew? Were they? What was happening when she actually went down? Can we demonstrate that Drac is right about the loss of the hood?
See if it was that what actually blew her up, if possible.
Yeah. There's a few of them out there which are pretty damn cool.
What
I'd like to know
happened to
exactly
the
what
Kursk?
caused the loss of every U.S. submarine that just disappeared.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
and this. So yeah, the
And
submarines.
I'd be very. I don't know if interested is the right phrase to use for something that kills a couple hundred people at a time. Uh,
I think you
but
could say interested. I think if you start going on, I'd be excited, and it's one of the strange things because as a historian you get into this quite a lot. Of some people do think you're very morbid and weird for looking into how people died, and you're excited to learn information. But to me, or interested to learn information, to me, I consider it very important to try and find out what happened to those people and why. And I'm excited to try and get answers.
yeah, as Knight points out, I wonder how many of those SS boats, fleet boats in the Pacific were taken out by their own Mark 14s.
We'll hope for none, and we doubt it though.
Yeah, and if so, then I will even more scorn upon Bjord
Yeah.
and their obstinance. Anyone
Black
else?
Horse. Runon, how bad is it to physically tie down an electrical breaker like one of the electricians did with the South Dakota in that Battle of Hiroshima, and how do you fix it?
Okay, so as to how bad is it, how long is a piece of string? If you're talking a breaker in that time period, they may not have disconnected handles. So essentially, you're going to just be throwing power into that overloaded or shorted line until either the line melts, catches fire, burns the connection off, or just generally fails, or blows out the generation source, whether
Or
that's a
combination of all
transformer
the
or a
above.
generator. Usually, you won't get a full combination. You'll get like 2 or 3 out of that list, but not all.
Try
usually.
harding. I'm sure you can do it.
How do you fix it? Assuming that means how do you fix it with regards to the damage that would cause? Well, what damage do you have, and then replace the damaged components. If you're saying how do you fix it so that enterprising seamen can no longer do that, you do what we do nowadays, which is where you have the disconnecting handles. And that is where the handle is not permanently affixed to the actual open-close mechanism. And so this way, when the bimetallic strip or the impedance coil or whatever overcurrent method is used in that overcurrent device, it will always open the circuit regardless of what you do to the handle. That's why if you go, at least this is the standard in America, if you go into commercial panels that have things like a fire alarm or an electrically operated fire suppression system, you will find that the handles are locked in the on position or secured in the on position by some means, solely so that they cannot be incidentally turned off during routine maintenance or operations.
I would
But
say,
if that circuit has a failure, it will still trip the breaker, and you carry on.
I would say though, the point is it was actually carried out by an electrician for a reason to help the ship's operations under emergency circumstances. So, whilst you might have systems which can theoretically prevent it, I'm fairly sure you run on, and anyone who's equivalently capable as you, could figure out quite quickly ways around those things.
Oh yeah, it's just called insulated line taps and hope nothing blows up.
Yeah.
It's really, really simple. I've actually seen somebody who had their electrician friend bypass their main breaker on their mobile home that was slowly disintegrating around them.
Mark Hartness, the reason why we didn't say war would start over Czechoslovakia in 1938 with Churchill is because you've got a change in the scenario of who's Prime Minister of the UK and what rhetoric's going to be coming out of the UK. So you might not have it over Czechoslovakia in 1938. You might have early issues. If we consider... if we consider the remilitarization of the Rhineland, which also takes place in 1936, there is all the reason that if Churchill becomes Prime Minister in the right point in 1936, the moment the Germans march into the Rhineland, he's going to go, pull back now, or we march on you. That's the difference you're dealing with. So the reason we didn't focus in on Czechoslovakia is literally because, well, there's any number of incidents between Rhineland and Czechoslovakia where he will probably be slightly more affirmative. And how do the Germans respond? Well, as Hitler was fully prepared to withdraw from the Rhineland. So if Hitler's forced to withdraw from the Rhineland, how does that change Hitler's actions? What does he do? What happens in Nazi Germany? All these things. So, they push it through.
You also have the issue that the war plans were all involving France as well, and it depends where they're up to with their war plans and their politics, which obviously changes every 5 minutes, along with their government. So that's an added layer of fun.
With regards to Achilles, Dylan Minute is saying, or Agincourt is saying that it's been posted to socials, MOD and RN socials? Question mark. It appears.
I'm just checking.
Navy Lookout is also reporting. I do not have those socials, and most of those websites I do not patronize for various reasons.
No, Navy Lookout is saying the same thing as me. Whilst it seems to have come up on the Royal Navy, on the Royal Navy website, on their YouTube, it's not on the Royal Navy webpage or on their mod list.
Dylan Mint just posted a post from at Royal Navy. 7th Suit Class will be named HMS Achilles, approved by the King. That is currently in boarding ramp.
Yeah, that's on Navy Lookout, and that's on the things on social media, but they haven't changed their own website and they haven't changed their system. So I'll be interested to find out why they're changing that for Achilles.
Because we have to be nice to the French now.
Well, no, it's kind of it's changing the order of things. So would normally for the ship naming committee to change their names like that, then the ships they've got to have a reason. Oh, that name's going to be going to assign to something else. So the question is Agincourt going to something else?
Are we getting a new battle class?
Well, no. There's always been a thing that the final Astute was going to be called HMS Agincourt. So the question becomes, is this suggesting there's going to be an 8th Astute?
I mean, we can hope there will be, but...
They got space in Rosyth to build it alongside the Dreadnought program without any trouble.
That's quite an astute observation.
Please ignore her.
I found it funny.
I know. It would be interesting if that's the case, but
yeah, it's kind of. I'm still reticent because let me put it this way: I know the processes that go into the social media and go into the website, and I'm just hoping no one's done a faux pas on social media, and then they're going to have to do a withdrawal. But the fact they haven't updated their website, but they put it on social media, so it does worry me, because you'd expect them to have changed their website and everything announced it. And it's been sitting as Agincourt for a long time. And it's always been listed and announced as the last Astute will be Agincourt. So that's the question. Why are they? Why have they done that? If it is going to be, it does mean there's going to be an 8th boat. Then that would also. Well, the thing is, there's a whole sort of discussion of because Rolls-Royce are expanding their production facilities to build more nuclear reactors, so their submarine pressurized water reactor system that goes into submarines. They've actually increased the plant size that can build more, so they can build more of them.
Woohoo!
So the thing is, they do have more facility there. So theoretically, you've got advantages.
Let's face it, we need more nuke boats. It's just we need them like a couple of years ago, not.
Peter Dawson, I wasn't making a joke about dreadnoughts. That's the actual name of the SSBN program. The British SSBN program are called the Dreadnought class. They are literally listed as Dreadnought, Valiant, Warspite, and King George VI. So I wasn't making any joke about Dreadnought.
Of which the one we worry about is Warspite.
No, Dylan, that was the Royal Air Force website, which is notoriously terrible in terms of updating. The Royal Navy website is notoriously good in updating. There is a difference between the two. It is what it is. Don't ask me why, but there have been issues. And the Ministry of Defence website, don't get me started on. But the
Cal,
thing is, yeah.
Cal, it's not sad that Warspite is going to be a submarine.
It's scary that Warspite is going to be a ballistic missile submarine.
Equipped with ballistic missiles.
Yes.
With nuclear warheads. Multiple nuclear warheads. That is what we call a heckin' concern.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, next one.
Dreadnought.
Mm-hmm.
Mark 41 or silver?
What do I want to do?
I have no idea. But if you're Ethan Yang, you really want to know.
If I wanted to just do air defense, then silver is actually slightly faster. Slightly faster launch. If I want something which can take a wider range of missiles and a wider range of facilities, I probably go for Mark 41. Mark 41 is used by more nations and has a far larger suite of weapon systems that can go into it. Because more nations use it, so more nations are paid for it to be integrated with their systems. But silver is slightly faster for launching surface-to-air missiles. Yeah. Well, it's look. In the nicest way, I'll be very interested because there is a gap in the building slots of the submarines, and if we consider, if she's now is going to be Ajax, going to be Achilles, she was laid down in May 2018. Agamemnon was laid down in July 2013. If we consider the spacing, etc., and where they've been building the other vessels and running alongside them, they've got a space, so you could, in 2025, theoretically fit in an 8th Astute. You theoretically could. In about June, July this year, you could theoretically. This is me going from memory, so I could be completely wrong. But me going from memory of the slots overlapping and how they're being put together, there is a theoretical slot there in space in Rosyth that you could squeegee through an 8th Astute if you built basically a copy of Agincourt. Or rather, Achilles, as she's now apparently going to be called. But she's the only one which is yet to be launched. Agamemnon comes into service in 2025. To be fair, Achilles does go better with Agamemnon because Achilles always kept Agamemnon in check. But yeah.
No, Agamemnon was supposed to keep Achilles in check, failed, and it needed kind of Odysseus and the death of
Agamemnon relied on Odysseus to keep Achilles in check. Odysseus relied on Achilles to keep Agamemnon in check. Because Agamemnon was the king, Achilles was the warrior, and Odysseus was the guy who actually knew what was going on.
Pretty much.
So, why isn't there more international cooperation on auxiliaries?
A combination of nationalism and slightly different operating requirements.
Yeah, it's basically... It comes down to also... It's the same issue as why did the Royal Navy end up with the Type 45 versus the Horizon-class frigate? Because for the Royal Navy, they needed something slightly larger, something slightly more independent, so they went with a destroyer design. Yeah.
Also, think how... I mean, relatively few countries actually get proper numbers of auxiliaries.
Mm.
You know, one of the big complaints is that most of the global navies are, woefully
Underserved.
short. Yeah, like that. Stuart, yeah, I'm using my iPhone for my audio, as opposed to my computer because
I think I'm going to have to. I think I'm going to have to do a combined exercise of getting Fleet and Dan down here, and managing to sort out. I'm going to set up a group on the chat on the Discord server, which you're gonna, if you ask an admin, you're going to have to ask an admin to be allowed to join, because it's going to be a specific thing you can join, and it's going to be set up entirely for people who want to send parts and contribute stuff, so we can work out to build a coherent computer for Fleet. And maybe have also a coherent computer from spare parts for Dan, because I think Dan, how old is your laptop?
I don't like how long it's taking you to answer that question.
Yeah, this is taking a bit longer than I expected.
10 or 11, I guess.
2010 or 2011.
Yikes.
No, as in 10 or 11 years old. I think I got it about 2013, 2014.
Okay. And
that's not better, Dan.
When was the last time you closed a tab on it?
What kind of concept's that?
Is Dan one of those people who just leaves thousands of tabs up at once?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, what browser do you use at least?
Chrome.
Oh, no.
Oh, poor Dan.
Like, I know I'm a fool who does keep using Chrome, but I try and limit the number of tabs because it likes eating power and processing power up.
Well, I use Chrome because, honestly, when you're working with YouTube and all the other stuff, you have to use it. Chrome works better with them than anything else. Firefox is just too fiery for it. And whatever Microsoft is supplying, I don't want to use at the moment because it's got so many holes in it, it's beyond belief. But yeah, so we might be doing a Dan and Fleet combined, building them a new computer.
No, I have the tabs go to sleep function turned on. So
yes, but you're still burning up memory, holding them.
I don't mind.
Right. So basically, international cooperation on auxiliaries is, in theory, it would make sense, especially within NATO. But you'd have America building an ultra-large version, Britain, possibly Italy, building a large version, France, Germany, and a few others trying to get away with a medium version, and others building a small version, which we sort of tried to do with a tanker series. If you look, there's a few tankers which look very similar going around. Didn't quite work out because no one else ordered it, because they always would order their own domestic design because it supports their domestic companies. Nordic Wolf, what aircraft could solve the long-range strike issue from aircraft carriers? Oh, the F-35C if they left all the fuel tanks in it. You have to remember, the F-35C, to make it acceptable within the paradigms, they deleted fuel tanks from it. They deleted fuel tanks. There are spaces you could put fuel tanks in there. You could turn the F-35C into a really long-range strike aircraft. And the X-47, that had the makings of a very good long-range strike aircraft as well. But that program was cancelled in favour of the tanker-build aircraft. Steve Clarke, the testing of naval weapons has been discussed. What metrics were used in those testing process? Well, it depends on the period, but used to be, here is thick piece of armour, blast hole in it. At what distance can you, how big is hole that you blast into it, and at what distance can you do it? Saying that, it's one of the interesting things, because when we're talking about the whole discussions about testing weapons and about the Third Sea Lords having a far greater ability to use, to award grants and have funding themselves, the sheer amount of testing that would have gone into ammunition and shells and armour in the 1900s would have been dramatic, because they would have probably increased that and increased the density and the thickness of the armour they're testing against and all those things to try and see what's going on. And that would have had a really interesting effect on Model 1 as well.
Leslie Ian. Think about the bombardments of Hartlepool, Whitby, and Scarborough. Were there any German agents in towns or nearby areas, and what was the reason they were attacked and not other fishing ports on the northeast coast like Redcar or Cromer?
Simple, really. You could get to them. They were close enough to the ground fleet to be galling, not so close that you actually stood much of a chance of actually running into them. And there was also certain advantages in that they were going to have an impact. They have an impact you knew fairly well. Plus, you have to remember there's an advantage with them being seaside towns, which not just have fishing fleets, but also have tourism trade. Now, why is this? Because a lot of Germans would come on would come to the UK on holidays. There is a reason why the Cornish Riviera in Cornwall, the second largest group of tourists you get in Cornwall every year, other than those coming from the UK itself, come from Germany. For some reason, the Germans love to come to Cornwall. We're not quite sure why, but they do. I love Cornwall as well, but it is a huge. It's also one of the reasons why they'd like to have German speakers in the hospitals in here and down in Cornwall. It's the only hospitals in the country which advertise regularly for wanting German speakers on their staff. Because of that. Because of the sheer number of German tourists who come to Cornwall every year. And again, it's where people have gone on holiday, and you have a lot of information about because they've gone on holiday there. I did have an interesting discussion today, which was on another thing, which was basically that if the whole thing had gone through as I talked about and on Thursday, and we'll be talking again about on